Blood and Betrayal. Chapter 1. The bass pulsed through Velvet, Chicago's most exclusive nightclub, as Alessandro Ricci surveyed the crowd from his private booth. At 32, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who commanded respect and fear. His tailored black suit concealed both a gun and the lean, muscular physique that had helped him rise to become the Ricci family's top enforcer. "Another drink, Mr. Ricci?" The waitress appeared with practiced timing. Alex nodded, his dark eyes never ceasing their methodical scan of the room. This wasn't just recreation, it was business. Velvet was one of many establishments that paid protection to the Ricci family, and his presence served as both oversight and reminder. That's when he saw her. She moved through the crowd with effortless grace, seemingly immune to the chaos around her. Her emerald dress caught the light with each step, but it was her eyes, sharp, intelligent, observant, that captured his attention. Unlike the other women who frequented Velvet, she wasn't seeking attention. If anything, she seemed to be studying the room with the same calculated interest as he was. Intrigued, Alex motioned to his cousin and right-hand man Enzo. "Who's that?" Enzo followed his gaze and shrugged. "Never seen her before. Want me to find out?" "No." Alex stood, straightening his jacket. "I'll handle this myself." As he approached, she turned, as if sensing his presence. Up close, she was even more striking. High cheekbones, full lips, and those eyes, hazel with flecks of gold that seemed to evaluate him instantly. "You're in my spot," Alex said, his voice carrying just enough authority to be heard over the music. She raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "I wasn't aware seats came with nameplates in this place." Her response, confident, unintimidated, caught him off guard. Most people in Chicago knew who he was, or at least sensed the danger he represented. This woman either didn't know or didn't care. "Alessandro Ricci," he said, extending his hand. "My friends call me Alex." "Olivia Carter." She accepted his handshake, her grip firm. "And are we friends, Mr. Ricci?" "That depends on how the night goes." He gestured to the bartender, who immediately brought 2 drinks. "What brings you to Velvet, Olivia? I know most of our regulars." "Just passing through," she replied, accepting the glass. "Chicago's a stop on my consulting circuit. Financial systems analysis?" "Sounds fascinating," Alex said, not bothering to hide his skepticism. She laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to cut through the artificial atmosphere of the club. "It's mind-numbingly boring, actually, but it pays the bills." What Alex couldn't know was that Olivia Carter was actually Detective Olivia Reyes, 3 years with Chicago PD's Organized Crime Division. Her consulting cover allowed her to move in the circles where the Ricci family conducted business. After months of careful preparation, she had finally engineered this meeting with Alessandro Ricci, the family's enforcer, and her ticket into their operation. "And what do you do, Alex?" she asked, though she knew exactly who he was and what he did. "Family business," he replied with practiced vagueness. "Import-export, property management, investments. How diversified of you." Their conversation continued, a delicate dance of half-truths and genuine connection that surprised them both. Alex found himself drawn to her sharp wit and the way she listened, truly listened, when he spoke. For Olivia, the unexpected complication was how different Alex was from the cold-blooded enforcer described in police files. He was intelligent, observant, and possessed a dry humor that made her laugh despite herself. As the night progressed, Alex found himself sharing stories he rarely told anyone, about growing up in Chicago's Little Italy, his mother's death when he was 14, his passion for restoring classic cars. Carefully edited versions of his life, but with more truth than he usually allowed himself. Olivia matched him story for story, drawing from her real childhood in Boston while carefully maintaining her cover. When she mentioned her love of sailing, a genuine passion, Alex's eyes lit up. "I have a boat," he said. "Nothing fancy, but enough to get out on the lake. You should join me sometime." The invitation presented exactly the opportunity Olivia had been hoping for. but the genuine warmth in his expression caused an unexpected pang of guilt. "I'd like that," she said, and was surprised to realize she meant it. When they finally parted ways in the early hours of the morning, Alex insisted on having his driver take her back to her hotel. As the car pulled away, Olivia leaned back against the leather seat and closed her eyes, trying to reconcile the man she'd just spent hours with against the file she'd memorized. Alessandro Ricci, suspected in at least 7 murders, countless assaults, extortion, racketeering, the family's enforcer, dangerous, ruthless. Yet there had been moments tonight when she'd glimpsed something else, a thoughtfulness, a depth that didn't align with the cold-blooded criminal she'd expected. In his penthouse apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, Alex stood at the window, watching the city lights shimmer on the water. Olivia Carter had gotten under his skin in a way no woman had in years. There was something about her, a mystery he couldn't quite solve. He pulled out his phone and texted Enzo. "Run a background check on Olivia Carter, financial consultant, thorough." It was standard procedure. Alex hadn't survived this long by taking people at face value. But as he set the phone down, he found himself hoping the check would come back clean. Chapter 2. 3 weeks later, Olivia sat across from her handler, Detective Sergeant Mike Donovan, in a nondescript diner 20 miles outside Chicago. The location changed for every meeting, but the tension remained constant. "You're getting too close, Reyes," Donovan said, his weathered face creased with concern. "The surveillance photos from the yacht club, the restaurant in Gold Coast. You're spending a lot of off-the-record time with Ricci." Olivia stirred her coffee, buying time. The past weeks had been a careful balancing act. Her relationship with Alex had progressed rapidly, giving her unprecedented access to his world. She'd met several key members of the Ricci organization, been invited to family dinners at his uncle Don Ricci's mansion, and gathered more intelligence than any previous operation. But Donovan wasn't wrong. The line between her cover and her real self had begun to blur. "I'm doing my job," she said finally. "Ricci trusts me. That's the whole point. The point is gathering evidence to take down the entire organization, not playing house with their enforcer." Donovan pushed a file across the table. "We need you to plant these bugs in his apartment and at the family's restaurant." Olivia stared at the file, her stomach tightening. "That's a significant escalation. If I'm caught, then don't get caught." Donovan's voice softened slightly. "Look, I know this isn't easy, but we're talking about a family responsible for flooding our streets with drugs, extortion that's bankrupted dozens of legitimate businesses, and at least 15 murders in the past decade. Whatever charm Ricci's showing you, it's not the real him." But Olivia wasn't so sure anymore. She'd seen Alex with his young cousin's children, gentle and patient. She'd watched him intervene when one of the family's associates was getting rough with a waitress, pulling the man aside with quiet authority. She'd experienced his thoughtfulness firsthand, the way he remembered details about her likes and dislikes, how he actually listened when she spoke. Yet she'd also witnessed the other side, the calculated businessman discussing territory with rival organizations, the cold efficiency with which he handled problems, the respect tinged with fear that his name commanded throughout Chicago. "I'll plant the bugs," she said finally, "but I need more time. Rushing this could blow the whole operation." Donovan nodded reluctantly. 2 weeks, then we need those devices in place." As she drove back to the city, Olivia's thoughts were a tangled mess. The deeper she went into her cover, the more complicated her feelings became. She told herself it was just the job, that the connection she felt with Alex was manufactured, necessary for her cover. But late that night, lying beside him in his penthouse as he slept, his arm draped protectively across her waist, the line between truth and deception had never felt so blurred. Chapter 3. Alex stood in his uncle's study, the tension in the room thick enough to cut. Don Ricci, patriarch of the family, sat behind his massive oak desk, his weathered hands folded before him. At 72, he still commanded absolute authority within the organization. "We have a problem, Alessandro," the Don said, using his full name, never a good sign. "Someone is talking to the feds." Alex's expression remained neutral, though his mind raced. What information has been compromised? Shipment schedules, financial transfers, things only family or top lieutenants would know. The old man's eyes narrowed. "I've trusted you with my life, with this family's future. Now I need you to find this rat and deal with it. Permanently." "I'll handle it," Alex promised, his voice steady despite the unease growing within him. Marco Venuk, the Don's consigliere and Alex's mentor since childhood, stepped forward from the shadows of the room. In his 60s now, Marco had taught Alex everything, from how to shoot to how to command respect without violence. "We've already done some digging," Marco said, sliding a file across the desk. "Start here." Alex opened the file and felt his blood turn to ice. Staring back at him was a photograph of Olivia, except the name beneath it read, "Detective Olivia Reyes, Chicago PD, Organized Crime Division." The room seemed to tilt as he flipped through the pages. Surveillance photos of Olivia meeting with another detective, her police academy graduation picture, details of previous undercover operations. "You see the problem," Don Ricci said, watching Alex's face carefully. "The woman you've been bedding is a cop." Alex closed the file, his mind compartmentalizing with practiced precision. "I'll take care of it." "Tonight," the Don insisted. "This ends tonight." Outside, in the privacy of his car, Alex finally allowed himself to react. His hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white, rage and betrayal coursing through him. Every moment, every conversation, every intimate detail she'd shared, all lies. He'd let her into his world, introduced her to his family, told her things he'd never told anyone. And all along, she'd been building a case against them. He started the car, his mind already formulating a plan. The family would expect him to take her somewhere remote, put a bullet in her head, and dispose of the body. Simple, clean, final. But as he drove toward the apartment where Olivia was staying, memories flooded his mind. Her laugh, the way she challenged him, how she'd looked standing on his boat, face tilted toward the sun. The night she'd told him about losing her father. Tears in her eyes that he now wondered were even real. By the time he reached her building, his rage had crystallized into something colder, more controlled. He needed answers before he decided her fate. Olivia was working at her laptop when the knock came. She opened the door to find Alex, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk," he said, brushing past her into the apartment. Something in his tone sent alarm bells ringing. She casually moved toward the drawer where she kept her backup weapon, but Alex's next words stopped her cold. "Don't bother with the gun, Detective Reyes." The world seemed to stop. Olivia froze, her training warring with the panic rising in her chest. "How long have you known?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "About 20 minutes. Alex's laugh was bitter. "Turns out my family has better sources in the department than you thought." He pulled out his own gun, letting it hang at his side, a threat and a reminder. "I trusted you." "And I did my job," Olivia replied, though the words felt hollow even to her own ears. "The Ricci family has destroyed countless lives. You've destroyed lives, Alex." "Spare me the righteousness," he snapped. "You lied to my face for weeks, made me believe—" He cut himself off, jaw tight. "Made you believe what?" Olivia challenged, taking a step toward him despite the gun. "That I cared. That was real, Alex. That's the problem." Confusion flickered across his face, quickly replaced by suspicion. "Nice try. It's the truth. Why do you think my handler's been concerned? I've been compromised, emotionally compromised, because somewhere between trying to build a case against you and actually knowing you, I started falling for you." The admission cost her, but with her cover blown, the truth was all she had left. Alex stared at her, searching for the lie. "Even if that's true, it changes nothing. The family knows who you are. They expect me to kill you tonight." Fear shot through her, but Olivia held his gaze. "And will you?" The question hung between them, loaded with everything unsaid. Alex looked away first. "Get your passport and whatever cash you have. You have 5 minutes to pack a bag." "What are you doing? Giving you a chance to run?" His expression hardened. "It's more than you deserve, but I can't—" He stopped, recalibrating. 5 minutes, Olivia, or whatever your real name is." "It's Olivia," she said quietly. "Olivia Reyes." That part wasn't a lie. As she quickly packed essentials, Olivia's mind raced through options. Running meant abandoning the case, her career, her life. Staying meant certain death, if not from Alex, then from someone else in the Ricci organization. There was a third option, one that made her stomach twist with both hope and dread. "Come with me," she said as she zipped her bag closed. Alex laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "Right. Turn myself in, testify against my family, spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder in witness protection. No thanks." "Not that," Olivia said. "Just away. From all of it. The family, the police. Start over somewhere." For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, longing, possibility, before he shut it down. "There's no away from this life, you know that." "There could be," she insisted, "but we'd have to disappear completely. Both of us." Before Alex could respond, his phone rang. Marco's name flashed on the screen. "They're checking in," he said grimly. "If I don't answer, they'll send someone else." Olivia's heart pounded as Alex answered the call, his voice transforming into the cool, professional tone she'd heard him use for business. "It's handled," he said. "No, I'm taking care of the body now. Remote location won't be found." A pause. "Yes, I'm sure. She never saw it coming." After hanging up, he turned to Olivia. "That buys us a few hours at most. Once they realize you're not dead and I'm gone, they'll come after both of us." "Then we need a plan," Olivia said, the reality of their situation sinking in. "And I think I know someone who can help." Chapter 4. Detective Mike Donovan nearly had a heart attack when Alex Ricci walked into the safe house behind Olivia. His hand immediately went to his weapon. "What the hell is this?" he demanded. "My cover's blown," Olivia explained quickly. "The entire operation is compromised." "So you brought him here?" Donovan looked incredulous. "Jesus, Reyes, he's the enforcer." "He saved my life," she countered. "And he has information that could bring down the entire Ricci organization." Alex stood silently, his face impassive as they discussed him like he wasn't there. Inside, his thoughts were chaos. In the span of a few hours, he'd discovered the woman he was falling for was an undercover cop, decided not to kill her as ordered, and effectively signed his own death warrant by betraying his family. Now he stood in a police safe house, contemplating turning informant against the only world he'd ever known. "I want immunity," he finally said, interrupting their argument. "Full immunity for past actions in exchange for everything I know about the Ricci family's operations." Donovan scoffed. "You've got a lot of blood on your hands, Ricci. Immunity isn't on the table." "Then we walk," Alex replied coolly, "and you get nothing." "Mike," Olivia interjected. "He knows everything. Shipping routes, money laundering operations, political connections. This could be the case that brings down not just the Riccis, but half the organized crime in Chicago." The older detective ran a hand over his face, visibly torn. "I'll have to call the DA, get approval from upstairs. No promises." While Donovan made calls in the next room, Olivia and Alex sat in tense silence. "Why are you doing this?" she finally asked. "Turning on your family?" Alex studied her for a long moment. "When I saw your real name in that file, I wanted to kill you," he admitted. "But then I realized something. The betrayal I felt. It wasn't just about the case you were building. It was personal." "Alex, let me finish," he said quietly. "I've done things I can't take back. I've lived by a code that made sense in my world. But these past weeks with you..." He shook his head. "You made me see a different possibility. And once you see that, you can't unsee it." Olivia reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. "I never expected to feel anything real for you. It complicated everything." "Complicated," Alex repeated with a bitter smile. That's one way to put it. Donovan returned, his expression grim. The DA's willing to deal, but there's a condition. You both need to disappear tonight. The Ricci family has too many connections in law enforcement. If they find out you're cooperating, nowhere in Chicago will be safe. What about the case? Olivia asked. We'll build it from your preliminary work and Ricci's testimony. But you can't be part of it anymore, Reyes. Your cover's blown and your life is at risk. Donovan's voice softened. I'm sorry, but this is the only way. The reality of what they were contemplating settled over them. Disappearing meant leaving everything behind. Family, friends, identities. For Alex, it meant betraying the only family he'd ever known. For Olivia, it meant abandoning the career she'd worked so hard to build. There's one more thing, Alex said. Before we go, there's something I need to do. Chapter 5. The abandoned warehouse at the edge of the industrial district had served the Ricci family for years, a place for meetings that couldn't happen in public, for problems that needed permanent solutions. Tonight, it would serve a different purpose. Alex moved silently through the shadows, Olivia close behind him. Despite Donovan's objections, she had insisted on coming. This was their operation, their chance to gather the final evidence needed before disappearing. The office is upstairs, Alex whispered. All the records, shipping manifests, payoff lists, everything. It's in a safe behind the painting. Classic, Olivia murmured, earning a brief smile from Alex despite the tension. They had almost reached the stairs when lights suddenly flooded the warehouse. Alex instinctively pushed Olivia behind a stack of crates as footsteps echoed through the cavernous space. I knew you'd come here, Marco's voice called out. It's where I taught you to clean up loose ends, after all. Alex closed his eyes briefly, then stepped out from behind the crates, keeping Olivia hidden. Marco. His mentor stood 20 feet away, flanked by two of the family's soldiers. The disappointment on the older man's face cut deeper than any anger could have. The Don sent me to check on you, Marco said. Said something felt wrong about how easily you accepted the assignment. Seems he was right. It doesn't have to go this way, Alex replied, acutely aware of his gun pressing against his lower back. Marco's laugh was sad. There's only one way this goes, Alessandro. You know that. Where's the cop? Gone. I helped her disappear. Why? The genuine confusion in Marco's voice reflected the incomprehension of a man who had lived his entire life by one code, unable to understand betrayal of family for any reason. After everything we've done for you, everything we've built, why throw it all away for some woman? Some cop? Alex thought carefully before answering. Because I want something different, something more. There is nothing more than family, Marco insisted, his hand moving to his weapon. You're coming back with us, Alessandro. The Don will decide what happens next. I can't do that. The standoff stretched between them, decades of loyalty and mentorship crashing against the immovable reality of their current positions. Then I'm sorry, Marco said, drawing his gun. What happened next unfolded in seconds. Marco fired, the bullet grazing Alex's shoulder. Alex drew his own weapon, returning fire as he dove for cover. The two soldiers spread out, trying to flank him. From her hiding place, Olivia assessed the situation with trained precision. She had her service weapon but was outnumbered. Direct engagement would likely get them both killed. She spotted a circuit box on the wall nearby. Taking careful aim, she fired twice, plunging the warehouse into darkness. Chaos erupted. Muzzle flashes illuminated the space in strobing bursts as Alex exchanged fire with Marco and his men. Olivia used the confusion to circle behind one of the soldiers, taking him down with a precise strike to the back of the head. The second soldier, disoriented in the darkness, fired wildly. A bullet splintered the crate inches from Olivia's head. She returned fire, catching him in the leg. He fell with a cry of pain. In the center of the warehouse, Alex and Marco circled each other, mentor and protege locked in a deadly dance. It doesn't have to end like this, Alex called out. It always ends like this for traitors, Marco replied, his voice coming from the darkness to Alex's left. A shot rang out, and Alex felt fire tear through his side. He staggered but remained standing, firing back instinctively. There was a grunt, then the sound of a body hitting concrete. Emergency lights flickered on, casting the warehouse in a dim red glow. Marco lay on the ground, blood spreading across his chest. Alex rushed to him, pressing his hands over the wound. "Hold on," he urged. "We'll get help." Marco looked up at him, his eyes already growing distant. "You were like a son to me." "I know," Alex said, his voice breaking. "I'm sorry it came to this." The older man's hand gripped Alex's wrist with surprising strength. "They'll never stop hunting you, not after this." "I know that too." Marco's eyes drifted past Alex to where Olivia now stood, gun still drawn. "She'd better be worth it." Those were his last words. As the light faded from Marco's eyes, Alex felt a part of himself die with his mentor. Despite everything, Marco had been the closest thing to a father he'd known since his own had died when he was 12. Olivia approached cautiously, her expression a mixture of concern and wariness. "Alex, we need to go. Now." He nodded, rising slowly from beside Marco's body. "The safe. We still need what's inside." They worked quickly, Alex opening the hidden safe while Olivia secured the unconscious guards. The documents inside, ledgers, account numbers, names of corrupted officials, would give the prosecution everything they needed to dismantle the Ricci empire. As they prepared to leave, Alex took one last look at Marco's body. "He raised me, you know, after my father died. Taught me everything." Olivia touched his arm gently. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," Alex said, his voice hardening. "He would have killed us both without hesitation. That's the world I came from, the world I'm leaving behind." They slipped out of the warehouse just as sirens began wailing in the distance. Donovan would handle the scene, ensure the evidence was properly processed. For Alex and Olivia, Chicago was already in the rearview mirror. Chapter 6. 6 months later, a small sailboat cut through the turquoise waters off the coast of a small Greek island. The man at the helm had grown a beard, his once meticulously styled hair now longer and sun-bleached. The woman beside him wore oversized sunglasses, her dark hair now highlighted with caramel streaks. Michael and Elena Corsini, the names on their new passports, had arrived in Greece 4 months ago, purchasing the modest sailboat and a small villa overlooking the Mediterranean. To their neighbours, they were a Canadian couple who had sold their tech company and retired early to pursue their passion for sailing. No one connected them to the Chicago case that had dominated headlines for weeks: the dramatic takedown of the Ricci crime family, the arrests of over 30 associates, including Don Ricci himself, and the mysterious disappearance of enforcer Alessandro Ricci and undercover detective Olivia Reyes, both presumed dead after the warehouse shootout that had claimed the life of consigliere Marco Vannucci. "Thinking about home, Elena?" once Olivia asked, noticing Michael's distant expression as he gazed across the water. Alex shook his head, thinking about how different life is now, quieter. "Do you miss it? The excitement, the power?" He considered the question carefully. "Sometimes I miss the certainty, knowing exactly who I was, what was expected of me." He adjusted the sail, his movements confident and practiced. "But I don't miss who that certainty made me become." Olivia understood. She had her own adjustments to make, from dedicated detective to, what? A woman in hiding, building a new life with a man who had once been her target. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Their new existence was simple but not without its challenges. Trust had to be rebuilt from the ground up. Both carried the weight of their pasts: Alex's violence, Olivia's deception. There were nightmares, arguments, moments of doubt. But there was also freedom. Freedom from the constraints of their former lives, from the expectations that had shaped them. Freedom to discover who they could be together, without the shadows of family loyalty or police duty hanging over them. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, they anchored in a secluded cove. Alex helped Olivia onto the small dinghy that would take them ashore. "I got a message from Donovan yesterday," she said as they rowed toward the beach. Encrypted, through the secure channel. Don Ricci was sentenced to life. No possibility of parole. Alex absorbed the news silently. Despite everything, a part of him still felt the pull of family loyalty, the ingrained respect for the man who had been like an uncle to him. He also said they're still looking for us, Olivia continued. The family, I mean. What's left of it. Enzo has apparently taken over operations for the territories they still control. Enzo was always ambitious, Alex remarked, but he lacks the patience for leadership. He'll make mistakes. They reached the shore, dragging the dinghy onto the sand. As the last light faded from the sky, they walked hand in hand along the beach, the warm Mediterranean breeze carrying the scent of salt and distant cooking fires. Are you worried? Olivia asked. About them finding us? Alex squeezed her hand. We're ghosts, remember? Alessandro Ricci and Olivia Reyes died in that warehouse. Michael and Elena Corsini are just a boring couple who love sailing and make excellent tzatziki. She laughed, the sound carrying across the empty beach. Your tzatziki is terrible. It's improving, he protested with mock indignation. Their villa came into view, perched on the hillside above the beach, small but beautiful, with a terrace overlooking the sea. As they climbed the stone steps leading up from the shore, Olivia paused, turning to look back at the sailboat anchored in the cove, their footprints already being erased by the gentle tide. Do you ever regret it? She asked suddenly. Choosing this life? Choosing me? Alex took her face in his hands, his expression serious. In my old life, I never allowed myself to imagine a future beyond the family. You gave me that, a future I never thought possible. He kissed her softly. No regrets. Not one. As they continued up to their home, the stars emerged above them, countless and brilliant in the clear island sky. Their past lives, filled with blood and betrayal, seemed as distant as those stars. The future stretched before them, uncertain but theirs to shape together. In Chicago, the Ricci family continued its slow collapse under federal prosecution. In Greece, Michael and Elena Corsini prepared dinner on their terrace, laughing as they argued over the proper amount of garlic in the tzatziki. Two lives connected by choices made in moments of crisis, by the recognition that sometimes the greatest loyalty is to the possibility of redemption, of becoming something more than what the world has shaped you to be. And if sometimes they checked the shadows a bit more carefully than their neighbours, if they maintained escape plans and emergency funds, if they occasionally woke in the night reaching for weapons no longer there, well, old habits die hard. But with each passing day, those habits faded a little more, replaced by new routines, new dreams, new possibilities. Their story, begun in deception, forged in violence, had somehow found its way to something like peace. Not perfect, not without its shadows, but theirs. And for now, for both of them, that was enough. The end.